Welcome back. You're watching Storyboard. Hershey's India has released its first ever India TVC for its iconic dome-shaped chocolates, Hershey's Kisses, which was launched in India some time back. Storyboard's Farah, Bookwala, Vhora caught up with Hershey India's MD, Herjit Bhalla, to discuss the company's brand and marketing strategy and plans to build dominance in the competitive premium chocolate market. Let's start by talking a little bit about, Hershey's in India. You've had two major launches this year. The first obviously being Kisses and then being SoFit protein cookies. What has the customer response so far been to both these products?
Well, Farah, to begin with, it's been a very, very exciting year for us at Hershey India. In October, we brought the iconic, globally loved Hershey's Kisses into India. And the response has been absolutely fantastic.
Any indication as far as how these products are performing today, if you could throw some numbers at us today?
Well, see, the way we would evaluate the performance would be basis internally set KPIs. And like I mentioned, that currently both of them are delivering ahead of plan across all our target KPIs for this year.
So, you've just recently launched your very first television campaign for Hershey's Kisses, which features Tara Sharma. Tell us a little bit about how that entire campaign has come about to be conceptualized.
What the TVC really is trying to do is it's about enabling these loved moments on a day-to-day basis. So consumers look out for ways to express their affection. And some of these ways are just even beyond words.
So, and how is that TVC going to pan out in terms of, how would you expand this campaign across your platforms? Is this a 360-degree campaign? And if you could also give us a sense on what kind of marketing budgets do you have for Kisses today in India?
Well, I like to say that Hershey's Kisses is probably our biggest launch from the Hershey's portfolio in the last many years. So we have built a robust marketing campaign that encompasses TV, there's digital, there's PR, there's activations, and most importantly, there's going to be really strong in-store presence that we are going to be driving with this launch.
Although these are early days, but how will you look at expanding the Kisses line in India? What can we expect in terms of new variants? What can we expect in terms of new SKUs?
Well, we've currently come to market with 3 variants. So we've got the ever popular or the classic milk variant. We've got a creamy rich milk with almond variant. And then we've got a very unique Hershey flavor, which is called cookies and creme. So right now it's early stages of the launch, and we're going to be focusing on building these 3 variants in the market. But work is already on to really look at the next step, and as and when we believe it's appropriate, we will be bringing more variants or more SKUs into the market for sure.
But what is so unique about the Indian consumer palate, if you could help us understand that? What have you been observing, and are you looking at sort of, customizing the Hershey's palate to suit very distinct Indian taste? Because the idea is obviously to grab a larger segment of the premium market, and there's strong competition there obviously from the likes of Mondelez and even now companies like Amul who've entered this segment with some very, very premium offering.
The chocolate market in India, especially in urban India, is at $1.2 billion and is growing at 11%. So it's a huge market. There is a lot of opportunity for a differentiated product to grow. And now coming to the consumer, I think the Indian consumer is becoming a lot more discerning. And what they look for is a very clear, differentiated quality product coming to them at a value. And that's what they appreciate, and that's what Hershey's is really all about.
But what is the larger objective in India in terms of, garnering a larger part of the whole market? Are there some sort of targets that you could share with us? Because both the segments that you have entered into, the recent launches, one is the biscuit category as well as the chocolate category. These are heavily infiltrated markets as far as, and with very, very strong established entrenched players in the market. So what is it going to look like?
So if I go back to our journey a bit, we entered the Indian market with Hershey's chocolate syrup about 10 years ago. Yeah, and now you would find Hershey's chocolate syrup in a large number of households in the country. Over 2 years ago, we entered 2 new categories with the launch of Hershey's chocolate spreads and Hershey's milkshakes. These were immediately embraced by our consumers, making us number 2 and number 3 in these categories. So the Hershey's brand has really established itself in the Indian market and is almost a leading player, is a leading player in almost every segment that we play in. Similarly, on the other side, Sofit has been around. It's a brand that really owns the soy protein proposition in the country, is a clear market leader and has been doing really, really well. So in the last 2 months, we've entered much bigger and a lot more competitive and intense categories. And our focus really is going to be to build ourselves in these categories in the coming year. And that's where our energy and our investments are going to be targeted at.
So currently Kisses has been sort of launched only in the southern market because some of the earlier news reports talked about how the infrastructure there is more well developed, and it's a large chocolate eating market accounting for almost 1/3 of the consumption in the country. When do you plan to take this to other parts of the country, and what would it take in terms of you as a company sort of helping get that infrastructure in place?
Hershey's presence in the south is strong. We have actually gone this way in our earlier launch as well, and we believe this to be a winning formula, and that's why we decided to go into the southern parts of the country first. Having said that, our other chocolate brand, which is Brookside, is already national. So our infrastructure from a cold chain perspective is definitely now up and running. So it's really not about the infrastructure, it's more about establishing ourselves well in the southern markets, and then we should be looking at going national soon enough.
News 18 India has launched a new TV campaign that marks the channel's leadership in the prime time band. What is this new campaign all about? Let's take a look.
We wanted to communicate that our channel, News 18 India, had become the country's leading channel in the prime time band of 6 to 11 in the evening. But the problem is that over the last 2 years particularly, various media brands, whether in television or online or print, have advertised their leadership and sort of refuted leadership, and all of this has been through a certain format of screaming headlines, graphs that communicate their leadership numbers or whatever. And we had a feeling that the media planner, or indeed anybody else who receives these messages, is a bit tired of this claim and counterclaim, and over a period of time I think these messages are just not cutting through. So we decided to basically use humor and entertainment value to cut through the clutter. And therefore what you have is a very interesting commercial where the storyline is that a young man who's being grilled by a set of cops, and a particularly tyrant, tough cop, about where he was on a particular evening. And he says, look, I was at home watching News 18 India. To which they dismiss that. And suddenly their super boss, sort of barks on a walkie-talkie. Oh, shut up, you 3 idiots. He must be right, because the whole country watches, this channel in the evening. So it's just a funny, interesting way to get through the message.
Moving on, Bonvita Biscuits has established itself as the Subhaka biscuit over the past few years. But the brand in their latest campaign is taking this journey one step further by fostering progressive parenting. In their campaign, No More Excuses, this brand is taking real-life insights when children resort to creative excuses to avoid eating anything that could be healthy. Let's take a look. With that, it's a wrap on Storyboard this week. But before I take my leave, here is a look at what's in store in next week's episode. We have all the memorable conversations that we have had in the past 1 year. Hope you're looking forward to this one. Goodbye, and here is wishing you a Merry Christmas.